Hi, welcome back to the channel. I'm Michelle, and today I want to talk about academic rigor in homeschooling. I want to talk about this because I feel like it's a topic, specifically when you're talking about academic rigor, it's almost seen as a negative thing in homeschooling or looked down on. So what do I consider academic rigor? I consider academic rigor to be providing challenging learning opportunities for my children. Now, I think the trend, especially now, is to have a more gentle approach to schooling, which again, there's many different educational and teaching styles, and I'm not here to say one is better than the other, but I am here to talk about how personally in our home and our homeschooling, why I choose to provide my children with more challenging opportunities and less gentle approaches to things. I think one of the awesome things about homeschooling, and especially being able to teach your child, is you know your child very well. Probably 100% more than a typical teacher would. Now, there are certain circumstances that's not true, but typically you know your children very well, and this can be both a positive and a negative thing. I feel like in homeschooling, there's this thought that if you get pushback or resistance from your learner or your child or your student, that something's not right. That there's this idea, if it's not almost entertaining them, the thought that if they're not interested in it, they won't learn, which I disagree with, and I disagree with for a couple reasons. I don't think you have to be interested in something to learn it. Because one, sometimes you don't know what you're interested in until you're exposed to that information. There are many things we've covered in our Torchlight curriculum, never thought my kids would have been into. We're currently going through pirates right now in history, and both of my kids are really into it. I've never would have guessed that they'd be the pirate adventure seeking type. There's different art skills we've learned that, again, they learned how to make 3D objects, and they thought that was the coolest thing, and learning the perspective of how if you draw closer to a part of the paper, it will change the perspective of the paper. So just little nuances like that. Like my youngest daughter, I do have a almost 3-year-old, my youngest 6-year-old daughter, obsessed with ancient Egypt and mummification and all that, totally, that one surprised me. But it's funny how in homeschooling, you don't really see what they're interested in necessarily until they come across that information. So I don't think you need to, if your child's into, marine animals, structure your entire curriculum around marine animals. And I know a lot of people say, well, if they're interested in it, they'll learn it and retain it better. Again, I disagree with that somewhat. I've looked into studies on memory retention, how your brain works when learning and all these things, and I think you tend to remember the experiences over the information. So I don't put so much importance on making sure my kids think it's the awesomest thing that they're learning about, and I'm for sure not going to design a curriculum around an interest, maybe a unit study or something like that, but I'm not going to bend over backwards and reinvent the wheel every time their interests change. That's just not feasible for me or my schedule, and I think having the opportunity to learn new things is awesome. So the other reason is I think you can be greatly passionate about a subject, or for example, a career path. Say you want to be, like I said before, a marine biologist. There are many classes and things you will have to learn along the journey to becoming that aren't going to interest you. And that's okay. The path to what you want to be isn't always great. For example, my husband is a pastor, and he went through grad school and got a master's degree. He has a master's of divinity. And there are classes, like, he is very passionate about his job, and I personally would never want that job. It's a very difficult, demanding, emotionally draining job, but it's certainly a calling for him, something he seems called to do, something he's passionate about. But even on the road to that, there are classes he took, subjects he didn't like. He did not enjoy learning biblical Hebrew and biblical Greek. Those were really difficult for him. But does it serve his purpose now? Yes, he uses that information when he does translations and things like that, Bible readings. So it has a purpose. That boring, not liking stuff serves a purpose. So I see a lot of, emphasis on nature and art, and those are wonderful things. And I definitely think they should be incorporated in your homeschooling. But one thing I've noticed that's really missing is basic skills necessary. So for example, like Microsoft Office, knowing how to type a paper is essential, but also knowing how to make different flyers, different things like that, an Excel worksheet. Those are essential skills that I don't care if you don't go on to higher education or anything, say you run your own business. You're gonna have to do bookkeeping, accounting, basic business level skills that these things aren't being taught in homeschoolers. At least I haven't been noticing. There's one homeschooler I noticed of all the videos I watch, and she's the only one that introduced any type of Microsoft Word as a learning in her homeschool. And I'm like, that is something essential. Being able to watercolor a picture of a butterfly is beautiful, but you also need to focus on those essential things. Are kids gonna love making Excel spreadsheets? Probably not, but is it a useful skill you will use in your life? Absolutely. So those are the two reasons I don't think you necessarily need to love something to learn it, because you don't always know what you love or what interests you. And two, the mundane, boring things are sometimes essential to learn, especially if you want a certain career path. So the other part is why I provide more challenging opportunities for my child and lean less towards gentle. Now, like I said before, as a parent, you have the ability to know your child's limits much more than you would in a school atmosphere. And what I mean by that is, you know when that pushback or resistance is caused by, being sleepy, or if someone's getting sick, if they're just having a crappy day, if outside things are going on, you know the influences and things happening to your child that's changing that personality or changing how they're acting, and sometimes we just have off days, yes. But I feel like it's gotten to the point where the curriculum's becoming more entertainment and not so much concentrating on important things like, where is that curriculum coming about? What are the resources you're using? And I talk about this in a lot of my other videos about how I don't think curriculum should necessarily, the importance isn't how it looks, but the information within it. So when you are a parent teaching your child, it's very easy when you get that resistance or you get that pushback to think, oh no, it's not working. And then you spiral into, okay, I'm doing something wrong, or I need to find a better way for my child to learn. And I fully agree that there are different, learning styles, different things different children need. I have my oldest and middle child are completely different and need completely different ways of learning things. So I understand that, but I think you need to really examine why you're getting the pushback and resistance. Do I think children should sit there crying through lessons? No, I'm not saying anything to that extreme. But as a parent, you know if the work is too hard, if they're missing a concept, and it can be difficult as a parent to view that and figure that out, and I totally get that. I have years experience working in private school, so I kind of have that under my belt to kind of see the different places kids are coming from and why they're resistant to certain things. It's not the resistance sometimes, not only because the curriculum isn't working or they're not understanding a concept or it's not being taught well. There are other reasons. I've talked in the past about how my daughter was resistant to math because of her previous public school experience with it, that she had difficulty getting past the mental block of this is too hard or I can't do that. That was the problem, not the curriculum, but that was the problem. Getting behind the actual issue of the resistance of math was essential in order to move on. I could have been skipping from math to math to math, but that wouldn't have solved the problem. There was an issue behind that. So I will use her as an example of why I think it's important to offer opportunities, challenging educational opportunities to our children. My oldest, my almost 10-year-old, attended public school K through 2nd grade, and she went into kindergarten reading fluently. She was reading Junie B. Jones at 5 years old, which is, an early chapter book type thing. She really enjoyed it. She had a basic grasp on addition and subtraction. She picked those concepts up very early. We also worked at home. She was the kid begging me at 3.5 to teach her how to read, which kind of started the whole homeschool journey. But she went into public school being ahead of her peers. And that was difficult because she essentially really didn't learn anything for her first 2 years of public education. I'm sure there were, small things she learned, like basic socialization skills and maybe some science, I don't know. But when it comes to reading, writing, math, she didn't really gain a lot of skills. And the problem with that is the problem of her not being offered things to challenge her, to bring her to the next level, to grow academically and mentally and physically, all these things, is that she got the idea that school was easy, that because these concepts came to her so easily, she was smart. And what's the problem with that? The problem with that is when she finally in 2nd grade reached something that was difficult for her, that didn't come automatically for her right away, she got frustrated. Obviously, she got upset, and she got this idea that I'm not smart anymore. She put so much, and some of this has to do with the way we reward knowledge in this country, especially, that it's a very reward-based system. You get graded on what you got right instead of what you got, or you get graded on what you got wrong instead of what you got right. So I understand the thought process behind that okay, I'm not getting these things anymore, I'm clearly not as smart. And that's, again, a open mindset versus a closed mindset. That's the issue that we talked about with math, because math was the thing that frustrated her. But because she had not been challenged for pretty much the first 2 years of her academic career, she didn't know what to do when she hit that roadblock, when she hit that thing, I don't understand, it's frustrating. She had no coping skills to deal with it. She had no resilience, that's the word I'm looking for, to realize that this is difficult, I can work through it, I can get it, I can do this. And instead reverted back to this closed mindset that I don't get it, I'm dumb, I'm bad at math. Now I have a video up about this really great math book that really helped us a lot. I'll link it above, called Mathematical Mindsets. It's about kind of getting that open mindset, especially when talking about math, and it helped us greatly. But that was the problem. If she had been introduced to something that challenged her or helped her go to that next level that she was at, she would have built those skills over time. She wouldn't have necessarily had that self-esteem hit when she finally encountered something that was difficult. So for example, my 6-year-old, she, opposite of my oldest, she does very well with math, picks up math concepts very well, can do a lot of mental math, struggles with reading. But for the first time, because this would be her 2nd year homeschooling, for the first time, she encountered something in math that was difficult for her. She, like I said, usually gets concepts very quickly, but for the first time, she encountered something recently when we were doing a number bond that frustrated her. And she also had those emotions of, why can't I get this? This is usually so easy for me. What's going on? I can't do this. And we had to walk through the steps of, it's not that you can't do this. You can. And we talk about how the brain works and how we learn from making mistakes and all of that. And we had that conversation and opened the doors to that mistakes don't mean you fail. Mistakes are an opportunity to learn. So starting that conversation early. And it was over within a few minutes. She worked through the problem and got it. But she was building that resilience, knowing that she can get through it. So I think if we're constantly switching up the curriculum to, I want to say almost entertain, make sure that our kids are engaged and really want to do it, we're missing those opportunities sometimes to really challenge them, to get them to build up that resilience, to realize that they can go out into this world and do absolutely anything they want and totally believe it because it's true, that there are barriers and obstacles they will have to overcome it with whatever they choose to do with their life, but knowing that they can do it. That is an essential thing to learn, and something I think that might be missing when we're taking this overemphasis on a gentle approach. Now, almost like we don't want to upset the child type thing, when you need to give those the opportunity to be frustrated and get through it, to know that they can do it, and really look behind the reasons of those frustration and pushback. Now, of all the curriculum we've chosen, there's maybe 2 we've walked away from that did not essentially fit us. And I made a whole video about that. One of them was Good and Beautiful. But other than that, everything I have chosen, granted I do a lot of research before I choose, but everything I have chosen has worked. There's curriculum, like I said, that my oldest and my youngest daughter are completely different, that has worked for both of them, because I don't throw away curriculum very easily. I don't change things up very easily unless there is a fundamental reason to do it. If there's resistance or pushback, I deal with why there is. It's not always the curriculum that's the problem. For example, my oldest was doing math last week, and she was making silly mistakes with her addition, and it was frustrating her because it was a multi-step problem. So because the addition was wrong in the first step, the other 2 parts of the problem were wrong, and she was getting really frustrated with it. And she was giving me the attitude of, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do math. That kind of thing. And was it the math that was the issue? No, the issue was that she's about to be 10 and she's going through that preteen changes, and things are just becoming more easily frustrated to her. But again, it's not the math that was the problem. It was not the curriculum. There were outside things influencing that. So the main reason I want to talk about this is to talk about how it's all right to provide challenging things to our children. It doesn't always have to be the gentle approach. And I've talked about this in the comments with a few people in videos, and how I don't understand why providing challenging things to your children is seen as negative. And someone made the comment that people want to be so far away from what public school is that they want the complete opposite, which probably would be more like unschooling, or maybe like a Waldorf type thing, where it's more artistic and gentle and child-led and things like that. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm saying that you need to provide these opportunities for your children to be frustrated and challenged, and you need to have the confidence in yourself as both an educator and a parent to know the reason why there are resistance. I'm not saying you will never walk away from a curriculum because it doesn't work. I'm saying know why you're walking away from that curriculum first. So if you have any questions, leave them down below. Now, thank you for watching.